Hello, my name is Damon Hargraves, and I am here today to talk to you about the Common Core State Standards Initiative. This is in partial fulfillment for a course I'm taking at UAA with Susan Garton as the professor, and I want to give a shout out to all my other RAPS cohort members out there. It's been great this past year working with you, and I'm going to miss you guys all next year. So Common Core standards. I'm not going to get too much into what Common Core standards actually are. Basically, though, it's an initiative being pushed by non-profit entities, not the federal government, but private entities coming together, trying to get a core set of standards for all states to follow, so that we can all be on the same page as far as standards, and you don't have all these different standards in different states. So the real purpose, though, of this presentation is not going to talk about the standards or Common Core itself, but actually what the entities are that are supporting it and quite literally financially supporting it. So there are 5 major entities that are supporting Common Core. There are 2 entities that are the major organizers for Common Core, and then there are 3 partners, is what they're called. One of the major ones is Achieve Incorporated. They're not too involved, but interestingly enough, on their website they state that their main goal, or one of their major goals, is to develop an international benchmarks for standards. And Common Core, one of its main goals is to internationally benchmark its standards. If you look through the standards on the Common Core website, you'll see lots of citations referencing Hong Kong, England, Canada, different countries who have similar standards. One of the other partners, as they are called, is the College Board. The College Board has 6,000 institutions worldwide, including high schools, colleges, universities. You've probably heard of them before. They're the ones that do advanced placement and the SAT test. Another one that you've probably heard of here that is a partner for Common Core standards is ACT. That's right, the people that do the ACT test are major partners for the Common Core standards. They are a nonprofit, but I had to ask myself as I was doing research for this and looked at their financials, what's a nonprofit? And I'm going to have to save that for another time, but I do know after looking at their financials that last year they did $250 million in revenue. That's not how much they're worth, that's how much they made in revenue last year. They are an international company, and they do have offices in the United States. Their major headquarters are in Iowa. ACT is a derivative of the old Iowa test of basic skills. They're the ones that made the old Iowa test of basic skills that we all knew, or maybe even took if we were in school at that time, and are all familiar with. They also have major corporate offices in Spain, Singapore, Indonesia, Australia, Korea, and China. In Indonesia, Korea, and China, one of the main parts of their business is English aptitude testing for corporations. People take their tests and prove certain levels of English speaking abilities to get certain positions in corporations overseas. So it's big business, big worldwide business. Also part of Common Core are the 2 major organizers. One of the major organizers is NGA, which is the National Governors Association. And every state is a member. Every governor in every state is a member of NGA. But that doesn't mean that every governor supports Common Core. Right now, and it's the beginning of March 2010, or April rather, it's the beginning of April, there are still 2 states that do not support Common Core, and those are Texas and Alaska. On their website, the Governors Association claims that they get 10% of their funding from sponsors. Having looked at their finances, I find this to be a little bit misleading. Overall, yes, they receive about 10% of their funding from sponsors, but really the organization is split up into 2 entities, NGA and then NGA Center. NGA Center is a lot bigger than NGA, and NGA doesn't receive any money from sponsors. NGA Center receives all of the sponsorship money according to their finances. So really, and it's NGA Center that is the one that actually is involved with Common Core. So you could say that NGA Center receives 24% of their income from corporate sponsorship. Okay, as I said before, there's another main organizer, and that main organizer is CCSSO, which stands for Council of Chief State School Officers, and their revenue is 25 million, over 25, almost $26 million just this past year. And looking at past years, or even further back, 2006, 2005, 2000, around that area, they were actually pulling in a lot more money. Several years ago, their revenue was almost double what it is, or what it was this past year. This past year wasn't a particularly good year, but they still pulled in over $25 million in revenue. And on their website, they've got this nice little pie chart that says that about 80, a little over 80% of their income was brought in by grants, contracts, and sponsorships. Roughly $23 million. And I was very curious about this. CCSSO didn't seem to me to be a particularly high profile, grant funded educational entity that I knew a whole lot about. And so I was curious, what kinds of grants were they getting? And as I started looking at their finances, I found out that actually they only receive about $4 million in grants. And if you do the math, their actual contracts and sponsorships are almost $19 million, or 73% of their entire revenue. So it should be pointed out that the other major partner in this endeavor receives less than 25% of their revenue from sponsors and contracts. CCSSO, on the other hand, is mostly getting their money from contracts and sponsors. Their sponsors include ETS, McGraw-Hill, Pearson Evaluation, Scantron, and the College Board. If you remember over there, they're also a partner. So they're giving money through being a partner and through donating to CCSSO. I noticed that a couple times. I don't have all of the contributors listed here, but most of the money for CCSSO is coming from these entities. Their contracts were actually not very much. And I don't have all of the entities listed here, but the list goes on and on and on. And if you'll notice, there are a lot of publishing companies and a lot of testing companies, and this is who is mostly supporting Common Core financially. So the question remains, though, is this inherently bad? And I won't try to answer that here. I didn't try to answer it in my research paper, but I would like to hear what your thoughts are. If we go to www.hrgrvs.net/ccs, I'd appreciate a comment. And also at that same website, there's the full text for my research paper that I wrote for my class. So again, I'd love to hear comments. If you'd like to learn more about the Common Core standards, the website for Common Core is corestandards.org. Thank you.